You heard about Daniel, how he came to Babylon, how he and his friends arrived and how they then got on, how they made it to the palace as the king's chosen few. If you want to know what happened next, watch episode 2.
Nebuchadnezzar woke up hot and sweaty, even hotter and sweatier than usual. Ah! Guards! Guards! Quick! Fetch me my magicians! I want every enchanter, diviner in this palace here this minute. Yes, I know they give me the creeps, but who else is there? I've had the most terrifying dream.
The chief magician tried to reason with the king. But, sir, we can't.
What do you mean, can't? There's no such thing as can't for the king. Look, you magicians, me king. You magicify and tell me what this dream means, or I'll kingify and have you torn limb from limb and cut into bite-sized meaty chunks.
But, sir, you obviously don't quite understand.
I understand very well. Now, I want to know what this dream means, and I want to know now.
But, Your Majesty, you haven't told us what happened in the dream. If you'd only tell us that, I'm sure we could accommodate you with a revealing interpretation.
I'm sure you could. You could say anything that came into your head. I'd have no way of knowing whether it were true or just some cock and bull story to take yourselves off the hook.
The magicians began to mutter and whimper among themselves. Majesty, surely what you're asking could be interpreted as possibly just a little unreasonable?
What's reason got to do with it? It's magic I want, not reason.
The legs of every magician in the place gave way beneath him, as if someone had pulled a rug out from under his feet. One minute the magicians were standing proud and unrelenting, the next they were grovelling before the feet of the great Nebuchadnezzar and clinging to his none too fragrant toes.
Sir, have pity on us! There isn't a man alive who can tell another man his dreams! Only the gods can do that! And they're not here to help us!
Unfortunately, pleas for mercy never made much impact with Nebuchadnezzar. You snivelling little worms. If there's one thing I hate, it's a fake. If there's another, it's a crawler. I'll have every last one of you torn limb from limb, your houses reduced to rubble and your bodies cut into bite-sized meaty chunks. Then, perhaps next time, you'll think twice before you mess with me.
Nebuchadnezzar was never one to do things by halves. He ordered that every wise man in the palace be executed as soon as possible. That's right, every wise man.
Daniel woke up cold and clammy to find that the king had sent to have him killed. His only crime being one of the palace wise men. Wait! Take me to the king. Let me reason with him. Because of the authority with which Daniel spoke, Barryck, chief of the king's own guard and a man of great discernment, granted his request.
Okay then.
So Daniel went to the king.
Your Majesty, just let me have some time, said Daniel. You haven't given me a chance to interpret the dream yet.
Well, since it's you, all right then. But remember, if you fail, bite-sized meaty chunks are the order of the day.
How could I forget? So Daniel went back to his friends, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. We're really up against it now, he said. We must pray that God shows us the meaning of the king's dream. Otherwise it's...
Bite-sized meaty chunks?
You got it. And so they got down on their knees and they prayed. And in the night, I've got it! God showed Daniel what the king's dream was all about. And Daniel was so certain about the meaning of the dream that even before he went and told the king, he gave God glory for what he had done.
Woohoo!
And Daniel cried out, "Praise you, God, for your love for us, for the way this day you've exonerated us, for the power is yours." Yes, the power is yours. You know all the universe, you made it after all. You know when the kings will rise, you know when they will fall. And the power is yours. Yes, the power is yours. You give to your servants whatever gifts you do. You made known to me alone the meaning of this dream. You've done it. You have done it. You have done it.
Go on then, spit it out. If you can help me with my dream, I want to know about it. The whole thing gave me the screaming abdabs, I can tell you.
Your Majesty, said Daniel, no wise man in the whole world could tell you the meaning of your dream when they don't even know what happened in it.
What's this?
It's completely unreasonable of your Majesty to ask such a thing of any mortal man. But There is a God who can tell you what you want to know, and he's passed on to me the meaning of your dream, not because I'm cleverer than anyone else, but because you, a great king, could benefit from being shown what will happen in the future. And so Daniel told him. The dream was all about a statue with a head of gold, a body of silver, legs of bronze, and feet of iron and clay. In the dream, a rock knocked the statue over, and the rock then grew into a mountain which covered the whole earth. Daniel told Nebuchadnezzar that the golden head of the statue was this great king himself, and the rest of the body were the inferior kingdoms that would follow after him. And the rock that eventually knocked them down and crushed the statue all to bits was the kingdom that God himself would build. And this, of course, was a reference to Jesus, although not even Daniel knew this at the time.
Anyway, I think that's enough about the dream. The important thing was that Daniel was able to interpret it. So, let's fast forward through all the details and get on. All right, this bit's good. This is incredible! Oh, Daniel, your God's quite something, isn't he? A cut above the average God. I've never met one that could really interpret dreams before. Oh, Daniel, thank you so much. Let me worship you. My people, come and bring Daniel sacrifices and burn incense before him.
This isn't quite what I was intending. The king was so pleased with Daniel that he made him governor over the whole province of Babylon. Overnight, Daniel was a very powerful man. And what's more, at his suggestion, the king made Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego Daniel's assistants. They worked out in the provinces while Daniel stayed at the palace. Unfortunately, Nebuchadnezzar's dream did not have the effect that God desired. The king acknowledged God one minute and promptly forgot about him the next. Instead, Nebuchadnezzar got statues on the brain.
I know what I'll do. I'll build a gold statue, 90 foot high and 9 foot wide. And all the officials from every part of my kingdom will be ordered to come and bow down to it. That seems like a good use of my time and money.
So this is what they did. A massive golden statue was erected, and anybody who was anybody gathered around it to pay homage.
The satraps and the prefects were there.
The governors and the advisors.
The treasurers and the judges.
The magistrates and the other court officials, they all turned up in their droves.
Basically, it was a day out for every bureaucrat in the empire, and they loved it.
And then the band began to play.
The horns and flutes.
The zithers and the lyres.
The harps and pipes.
You name it, they played it, all at once and with nobody to conduct. Still, the thought was there.
This whole fandanza is not as stupid as it sounds, you know. It was actually my very clever ploy to get all the officials in my huge empire to unite under one relatively arbitrary symbol. I'm not just a pretty face, you know.
And when the band began to play,
And the herald called out,
everybody bowed down before the great gold statue that Nebuchadnezzar had put up.
That's right. They all fell down and worshipped 90 feet of metal. Now, you may be asking, what about Daniel and co? Did they bow down to the statue when they knew the one true God?
The Bible doesn't say anything about Daniel at this point. Perhaps he was away on holiday.
Or perhaps Nebuchadnezzar had sent him away on business.
Maybe he had the flu.
Or a stomach bug.
Or maybe he was just too important to be invited to this sort of thing.
But we do know what happened to Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And it wasn't very nice.
Some of the bureaucrats went to the king and they said, "Majesty, live forever. Many felicitations do we offer your most good self."
Get on with it.
It has obviously not been drawn to Majesty's attention that some Jews whom Majesty has placed over the affairs of Babylon, men whom you must esteem most high to have promoted above the measure of their kind, have chosen to flout your ordinances and defy those commands that we are confident are concurrent with your will. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego not only have neglected to serve our local gods, but even now stubbornly refuse to bow before the great gold edifice that Majesty has placed upon the plain of Jorah.
What? before my statue? Bring 'em in! Bite-sized meaty chunks are too good for that lot.
So Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were brought before the king.
Right, you three. Do you see that furnace over there? It is incredibly hot. It is not there to keep us warm on a sunny summer's afternoon. It is there to incinerate people. I tend to incinerate people I don't get on with very well, and I'm rapidly going off, you lot. Now, I'll give you one last chance. Either you bow before my statue, or else I'll have you chucked into that furnace. And then we'll see what God can rescue you from my hand.
Uh-oh, defying God again. Never a good move, that. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego replied, "Oh, Nebuchadnezzar, we're not worried about what you can do to us. Our God is more powerful than you are. If you have us thrown into the fire, our God is well able to save us. But this is the point. Even if our God chooses not to save us, we want you to know, O king, that we will never worship your gods or bow down to your gold statue."
Nebuchadnezzar's face changed colour. First a pretty pink, then yellow, then a sort of green. Ah! Heat the fire 7 times hotter than usual. Fetch me my strongest troops. Bind these men. I want them charred to cinders while I watch. We'll soon see who's king around here.
The soldiers lashed together the hands and feet of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego and picked them up. They staggered forward, desperately trying to use the men's bodies as a human shield against the blaze. But it was no good. The heat was more terrible than anyone had imagined. It was in their last living moments that the soldiers somehow managed to hurl their prisoners forward into the fire. Each soldier was burnt to death carrying out his orders. Not one made it back to tell the king that his commands had been carried out to the letter. The stench of burning human flesh filled the air.
But Nebuchadnezzar was determined to see this thing through. Grimly, he settled back to watch the show. Didn't we throw 3 men into the fire? Why then can I see 4? There are 4 men walking around in there. And that last one looks more God than man. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, servants of the Most High God, come out of there!
And out they came. The whole court gathered around Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, absolutely gobsmacked. Their clothes weren't even scorched. They didn't even smell of smoke. Meanwhile, Nebuchadnezzar was in a state of shock. After all, he realized he'd just taken on God and lost. The king honored Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego for their great courage, and he gave them all promotion. But more importantly, he honored God. He had to admit none of his gods could do anything like this. Huh, quite an ending, eh?